May darkness take you, my mother barked angrily and pushed me through the door, making me stumble into the freshly fallen snow outside. And don't dare to come back with empty hands, she added, before shutting the door to our home to keep the icy winds from invading it and stealing the warmth of the burning fire. Fire was always hungry, always wanting more wood to consume, and it was my job to feed it. I got up and brushed the snow from my coat, shivering from the cold. I was hungry too, but I knew that if I didn't come back with enough wood, my mother would not give me anything to eat, and I would be forced to go to sleep hungry again. I passed through the village, keeping my head low, even if there was little chance that anyone would be outside during such weather. I didn't want to take any chances though. Ice had taken the villagers a long time ago, taking hold of their souls. They didn't disappear into the night, like in the old days, that my grandma had told me about when she was still alive, but it only made it worse. I glanced towards the palisade that surrounded the village, protecting it from the things that came from the forest, and sighed. A group of men stood at the gates discussing something, and the wind carried their alcohol fused voices through the air. I stopped and shivered as a bitter gust tugged at my coat. Another futile hunt for them, I thought. Even in their alcoholic haze, they must have known how pointless it was. Yet they gathered every week, despite the weather, and went into the forest, confident in their numbers and the rifles they carried with them. If they saw me, they would try to steal my wood when I came back, I thought, as I turned away and continued into the village. There was another entrance, a small door in the palisade, that led to a stream where I could sneak out. It wasn't guarded most of the time, as people believed that no evil could cross flowing water. How foolish, I thought. I had seen the huge paw prints in the snow on our side of the creek so many times. I halted as I came to the door and leaned into it, pushing against the snow that had fallen in the night. It took almost all my strength to open it wide enough for me to squeeze through the gap and see the snowy forest just nearby. I smiled and whispered into the wind. Darkness, take me. The stream was hidden underneath the deep snow, and I hoped I could avoid stepping into it as I made my way to the forest. My feet were already so cold that I could hardly feel my toes, and stepping into freezing water and being forced to walk despite it, I tried not to think about it. Darkness, come! I cried in defiance as I entered the forest, knowing that no one would overhear me. But I knew it was a futile wish. She only came at night. One day, I told myself, as I started to gather the snow-covered branches lying on the ground, ignoring the chilly gusts of wind that howled between the trees. I gazed up at the grey sky, watching the snow fall. I still had a few hours before the night would bring the snowstorms, and the wooden gates of the village would shut as the people braced themselves for the upcoming night. At least work kept me from being cold, and after a few hours, a big bundle of wood was ready to be taken home. Home. I sighed and threw it over my shoulder, almost collapsing under its weight, when a lonely howl pierced the air, and I froze. It's okay, I whispered to myself, trying to push away my fear and smile. She's coming for me. But the howl didn't return, and I sighed and started to walk. The way back always felt longer, and I was tired and hungry as I trudged through the deep snow, with a massive bundle strapped to my back. As I came to the palisade, I cast one last glance towards the snow-covered forest, when my foot suddenly broke through the thin ice of the stream and sank into the freezing water, causing me to lose my balance. I stumbled and fell into the snow, screaming as the branches from the bundle pierced through my coat and reached my skin. Only luck saved me from landing in the stream as well. That's when I saw it. The huge paw print in the freshly fallen snow. I shivered. She must have crossed my path when I was in the forest collecting wood. Why didn't you take me? I whispered with disappointment as I slowly got up and brushed the snow from my coat. My back hurt as I made my way to the palisade, and I squeezed myself through the gap and shut the door behind me. You're useless. My mother glared at me with a frown as I threw the heavy bundle next to the fireplace to let it dry. Go and feed the animals, she ordered, and threw more wood onto the fire. I knew that no matter how bright the fire burned, it would not warm her. Ice had taken her a long time ago. I left and went to the barn, hoping that when I came back, she would give me some food. I was hungry. The chickens welcomed me with their quiet chirps, but our old goat only gave me an apathetic look. She must know. I sighed. She didn't give much milk and was too old to breed, so probably soon Mother would butcher her for the little meat she had on her, just like she did with the old hen last month. I threw them a handful of grains I had taken from the wooden barrel, then stood in the corner. After a second thought, I filled my pocket with it too, just in case. I could always soak them in water and eat if my mother decided not to give me any dinner. On my return, I found a bowl of thin stew waiting for me on the table. It was lukewarm. She had probably served it the moment I left to feed the animals, but I didn't complain and ate in silence, watching her stare into the fire. I knew I wouldn't have the same luxury in my room, but I still preferred it over my company. I looked out the window. It was already getting dark, so no more work today at least. Of course, she didn't care what happened to me, and if she could, she would make me work the whole night. But the villagers believed that being outside after sunset would attract darkness, or any other of the creatures that lurked in the forest, so I was spared that fate. I got up and closed the shutters and locked the door before turning to her. I'm going to bed, Mother. Do you need anything else? To my relief, she just shook her head without looking at me. My room was cold and dark, and I shivered as I lit the small candle that stood on the table next to my bed. Finally, I could take off my wet shoes and cover myself with blankets. I still had a hope that they would somehow warm me, but I knew that that wish was futile. I heard the cold gusts rattling the shutters as distant howls pierced the night. I smiled and whispered, Darkness, come and take me. I closed my eyes, listening to the raging storm. Despite the cold, I must have fallen asleep, because when the sudden screams filled the air and I bolted up, the candle had gone out and the room was covered in darkness. I got up. My shoes and clothes were still wet, but it didn't bother me. I knew I wouldn't need to worry about staying warm much longer. I walked through the silent house, feeling the cold stone under my bare feet, and opened the door. Mother must have run away, leaving me behind, but I didn't care, I told myself, as I stepped into the blizzard. The houses were in flames, and I saw the creatures of the forest dancing in the shadows as they celebrated their victory. But it was the red eyes that glared in the night that caught my attention, as a shape darker than the night loomed over me. So you came, I whispered, as a strange calmness overtook me, and I looked into her eyes. She glared at me and let out a quiet growl as I took a step towards her. Run, little one, run, she whispered in my mind, but I shook my head. No, I said, looking into her glowing eyes. Run, and I will give you a swift death. I took another step and halted in front of her. I will not run. Kill me here or take me with you, I said. She loomed over me, and her low growl pierced the air as she looked at me, confused, and I used her hesitation to step closer and put my hand on her fur. It was soft, softer than I had imagined. What are you doing, little one? I ignored her question and buried my face in her fur. Will you kill me? I asked quietly. What else? She asked, but her voice became softer and more hesitant. Take me with you, I whispered. Please. She stepped back and looked at me carefully. Why aren't you afraid? Don't you know who I am? You're darkness. She growled, and at first I thought I had made her angry, before I realized she was laughing. Darkness? So that's how your people call me. I nodded. I like it. What's your name? I asked her, and I felt the silence filling the air as everything went still. She looked at me for a long time, and I saw the red glare slowly fade from her eyes. I'm Ninian, little one. And you? Aren. My name is Aren. I smiled and looked into her deep blue eyes.